I was born and brought up in Madurai. Did all my schooling there. I worked, earned, and spent all my money in Chennai and Bangalore. And it's been like 10, 11 years of working so far. And I did my MBA from IIM Bangalore. And I also did a post-graduation in data science from Meckham School of Business. But I learned a lot on work. So I believe in the phrase called learning by firefighting. So more than MBA, more than post-graduation, I learned a lot talking to people like Dinesh, Badri, Siddharth, and others, and on work, fighting a lot of fires. And I've worked as a business analyst. That's how I started in TCS. I worked as a technology consultant in Quantify, which is a data analytics startup in Bangalore. And then I worked as a product manager in Ford, and now I'm a product manager at PayPal. So I've worn multiple hats. I've done a lot of different things. Apart from work, I've also done a lot of things like photography. I had a DSLR, I was roaming around, taking all the weddings and disturbing the professional photographers and stuff. So I've done all that crazy things that everybody does. But currently, what I'm doing is a product manager role where I'm building an in-house FinOps product. I don't want to go into detail about that, but it's a very interesting space that I'm in. And bottom line, I love what I do. And I think that is important for all of us. And I hope you're also loving what you're doing. If you don't, I think you should really find what you love and start doing it immediately, because life is too short and you really have to love what you do. Apart from work, I like binge reading. I read a lot of fiction, mostly investigative and science fiction types. But currently, I'm also trying to read non-fiction books that really helps me with my work, with my presentations, with my leadership talks and other things. So I like reading, and I also want everybody to not quit reading and move towards more entertainment focused web series and stuff. Please read. Reading can really help and change your life. And sometimes someday I want to really publish my own fiction. Sorry. And and become a movie screenwriter someday. So if you see my name on some movies credits, don't be shocked. I may someday become a movie screenwriter as well. Right. So I have a quick poll for all of you. It's a very simple poll. I just want to understand the crowd. So the poll is about, who is there in the crowd? Is it product managers? Is it other people who want to become product managers, or you just want to explore what is going on, right? So the poll is all about that. Are you already a product manager, or who are you? What is your persona? So user persona, basic thing of product management. That is the question that I've asked.
So guys, you can find a poll near the chat icon called as activities. When you click on activities, you can see the polls, and the question is on.
Great. I see 5, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3. Interesting. Oh, there's a good spread of people. Great, and ultimately it will go to normal distribution. Okay, great. Thank you for answering the question. I think we have a good product manager set here who wants to get more about know more about first principles, and I think there are also people who are exploring. I think it's a really good thing to explore. So I will, again, what I'm going to tell right now is nothing radically new that nobody never knows. And you can find all these stuff on internet, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it is. You can simply get all these details. But I just want to give you my perspective, and sometimes also understand your perspective on how you see these things, right? And that is going to be the objective of this call. It's not going to be about introducing something new and teaching new things, but it's about more like sharing things with all of you. With that being said, I'll quickly touch on what we are going to cover in this session. So, first principles. First principles means core tenets, the base framework, right? Very simple definition. So we'll talk about the first principles of first principles. Like what exactly is first principles? How do you define it? How do you understand it? And how do you apply it? And first principles in product management and first principles for product managers. So I would like to touch upon how you can implement first principles in building products, and how you can apply first principles for building your brand as a product manager. Like how do you use to promote yourself using first principles. And then I want to share some mental models. I'll touch upon mental models in the first 3 sections also. But if time permits, if we have time, I would like to discuss some mental models that I use that has helped me in my journey in product management. That can also help you and mainly trigger you to learn more. And as I said, this is going to be a very open session about sharing information and sharing knowledge. And my inspiration comes from a very famous Tamil author called Sujata. And I know most of you might have read about him. For people who don't know, he's a legend. And in his books, his non-fiction books, what he does is he gives you an introduction to sort of things. He does not explain you all those things, but he gives a very good introduction about certain things, and that will trigger you to go learn more about that if you're interested. And that is exactly what I want to do. Introduce you to some very high-level topics, stories, and concepts. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and do your own research. Right, that is what I'm going to do. With that said, I will go to first principles of first principles. First principles. So when did I come across this, and what triggered me to learn more about first principles and how it has helped me? So the question that triggered me to learn about first principles is this: where are the flying cars we were promised? So this goes back to 1900s. It was published in a magazine called Bandwagon in 1900s, and they said that was the time when Henry Ford launched Model T, and they wrote that Model T is fantastic, it's going super fast and stuff. That was the same time when Wright brothers launched aircrafts that could fly for like 15 minutes on air. And then they wrote very aspirationally that by 2000, we will have flying cars. So now the critics of technology, when they see some dumb, crazy innovations, they say, where are the flying cars that we were promised? And some of them are like this: an umbrella for your shoe, a knife to cut your pizza. So these are some innovations by some product managers around the globe. But when these kind of innovations come in, people actually ask, we were thinking about having flying cars in 2000s, but we are talking about umbrellas for shoes. But what if I told you we already have flying cars? I think Jay Anand has already got it. So Jay Anand, if you can comment, what do you think is a flying car? You're almost right. Anybody else?
Aeroplanes.
I want more specific answer, but airplanes is the right way. Flyovers, bridges, okay. So I would say, in my opinion, again, flying cars are your low-cost, low-frill airplanes. And in Indian context, it is Indigo. So why do I say this? And that is where first principles come in. So let's first understand, what did the customers need when they said they want flying cars? And here is what something we have to understand deeply is the difference between need and want. They wanted flying cars, but what exactly did they need? They wanted to travel fast. They wanted to fly. They wanted to do it very cheap because Model T was a very commercial car, and that is what they kept as a base, frame. And then they wanted to be convenient, right? So with an airplane that we have now, which is low frills, you will be able to travel fast and you will be able to fly. And let's do some economics. So let's do some guesstimates. Guesstimates is my favorite, so I want to do it. So here is something, itinerary from Skyscanner, where you see flights from Chennai to Bangalore. And there are a lot of flights from Chennai to Bangalore, and it's pretty cheap, like what you see. Let's do a comparison with a car. Let's say Chennai to Bangalore distance is 360 kilometers. A comfortable SUV, which gives an average mileage of 12 kilometers on highway with 100 rupees per liter. Cost breakdown would be close to 4,500, 4,600 rupees from Chennai to Bangalore. And that would say cost per seat to travel 1,533 per person. Again, there are a lot of ifs and buts, but I'm making a general assumption here, which is pretty close to what is offered as a flight ticket, right? So this makes it on par with what we offer for a car. So this is what I think has replaced flying cars. It's not about making cars that could fly, but it is about offering the value that a flying car could offer, but maybe in a different shape, form, and color. So this got my attention. I read this in a blog. Maybe I'll also share that blog sometime when this call is over. This said that, when people started talking about flying cars, they imagine cars with four wheels, with a rotor on the top, and that could have all the things that a car has, and that could fly. But if we were to build flying cars, I don't think we would have reached anywhere, because flying cars would have, would be a bad decision, right? The air traffic, the control. Like, if you have roads, we have signals and we could control traffic. Imagine having such a traffic on air, and the amount of CO2 and the amount of fuel that would need to power it, and a lot of other things that would come with it, right? It could have been a chaos. I don't know. But what people did was, or what people don't understand is, flying cars are existing, like how Jay called out, and it's your low cost airplanes. That's the first story I wanted to share. The second story I want to share is about our own Tony Stark, Elon Musk. And you all know Elon Musk from his Twitter story, his Tesla story, and from his SpaceX story. So when he started SpaceX, he wanted to commercialize space travel. Like, he wanted people to go to space, and his mission was to colonize Mars. I don't know if it's the right word, but he wanted to travel to Mars in a rocket that can be reused. So he approached a lot of people to buy these rockets, and that costed him $65 million for a rocket. And this rocket business, mind me, is not scalable. Like, you cannot build thousands of rockets to make it cheap. And to commercialize it, you have to have economies of scale. So what did he do? He hired some good engineers. He poached them from big air. He understood that there are four main materials that makes up a aircraft. Your aluminum alloys, your titanium, copper, and fiber, carbon fiber. And he brought that, and he started building his own rocket. And guess what the cost of that rocket was? Any guesses? It is definitely down from 65 million, but any guesses on how much that would have cost him? Any random numbers that you can throw?
55 million.
Anybody? Guess.
20 million.
Okay. Why not 25? Money? Why 22 is your favorite number? Okay, it's not few thousands, and it's million for one rocket. Like, for one rocket, it costs 65 million. Maybe, if you had built like 10 rockets, it would have costed 650 and more. But for one rocket, the unit cost was 65 million. Okay, the answer is less than $5 million, which is like 10% of the cost of this. So why is this story very relevant to us product managers and who are wanting to become product managers is, whenever we try to build a product, the very first conversation we get into is build versus buy. And the environment now is very SaaS-based. We have very modularized, specialized solutions. And whenever I pitch a solution in PayPal, I get this question, why not buy and why build? So I think Elon Musk also had the same situation, like what we as product managers have, like if you should buy it or build it. But he took this in the first principle perspective and decided to build it. And I'll come to it later on, the first principles, the definition of it. But this is one of the stories that I wanted to share. And next comes the most interesting thing that I really wanted to show all of you. And this is going to be a quiz of sorts. So I will display 3 companies, and I want you to guess their competitors. Okay. So the 3 companies are Netflix, Uber, and Facebook. What do you think are their competitors? Okay. Prime, Ola, Twitter. Okay. 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 I think many people got it right. So you're already there with first principle. So the clue is, for Netflix, it's not Amazon Prime or YouTube. For Uber, it's not Ola, Rapido, or whatever ride-hailing services you do. For Facebook, it is not Twitter or Instagram. And it is going to be what you exactly guessed. Netflix competes with your sleep. Uber competes with the public transport, self-driving cars, and all the other transport that you can take except Uber. And Facebook competes with video games. And this was not told by me. This was told by Mark Zuckerberg, Reed Hastings, and the Uber CEO, right? So why do they do it? Why do they not compete with their competitors? Is that these people are, the blue ocean people. They started, even Netflix started before Amazon Prime, Uber started before Ola, and Facebook started before Twitter. So how do you even think about your business model when there's no competitor? Like, what do you compete against? If you start compete against Amazon Prime, Netflix would not be Netflix right now, right? For instance, Netflix, as you all know, started as a DVD rental company. Imagine Netflix taking a similar DVD rental company as its competitor. Netflix would have not been Netflix, right? So people set such large goals, understand what is the absolute truth, what are they serving, who are they serving, and identify their competitors. And that is also a part of your first principles. So when you think about your product, when you think about who your competitors are and how you want to compete in a space, you have to think about from a customer perspective on the competition and not from a company perspective. So I'll come in detail about it in a while. But now an open question: who is the competitor of Amazon? Any guesses? What is the competitor of Amazon? I don't have an answer here, but I would like all of you to give it a shot. I see some very interesting answers. Mother, rationality. But I think you all got it right. So when we look at these big giants and products that are being established and making billions of dollars in revenue, they often target the consumer behavior and not the market. So they change the consumer behavior, and that is their market. And I think when we also build our own products, we should not look at existing products or existing product managers and compete with them. Rather, compete for a niche and create that niche. Right. So that is what I wanted to say. Now let's go to some textbook definitions of first principles. I think that is what people are looking at. So first principles, again, a Wikipedia definition is that a basic proposition or assumption that cannot be deduced from any other proposition. Again, this is not English. I don't know what it is. So what exactly is first principles, according to me, is boiling a system down to its fundamental building blocks. Imagine like a big structure, a building in India, which is made of individual bricks. How do you go to that brick level and understand the architecture of that particular building? So that is what first principles is. And this first principles can be applied anywhere. First principles can be applied in your medical field. In fact, people say that the first assumption is the right assumption in your diagnosis and all of that stuff. So first principles can be applied in architecture, in any type of problem solving, in your investigations of police cases and stuff. I've been reading a lot of these novels also, right? So you have to identify the underlying basic proposition or assumption, validate it, and that will serve as your foundation for anything else. So how do we apply this to product management? So first, breaking down the complicated problem to a simpler proposition and building bottom up. So the system that I mentioned is the problem for us. In product management, it is the problem, the customer pain point. So how do we intelligently or rationally break that down to simpler components and build bottom up? How do we deconstruct, align with the goals, and reconstruct? And this is what Elon Musk did with his SpaceX. He deconstructed the problem, looked at his goal, saying, hey, I want to build a rocket. Why should I build a rocket? Because I want to commercialize space. So then I should not buy a rocket. I should actually build it because that makes more sense to me, because I'm going to do it repeatedly. And then he reconstructed. Similarly, breaking down complicated problems. If Dinesh or Ashwin or Badri were assigned a task to build a flying car, they should have built a low-cost aeroplane, and that would have been a more logical product management solution. They should not have built a flying car. That is the first thing. The last point is arriving at the absolute truth. What is the absolute truth that we are trying to solve? That is the example that I gave with Netflix, Uber, and Facebook. What are they absolutely trying to solve? Are they trying to be a video streaming platform, or are they trying to be an entertainment platform? How do you set your vision and mission according to what the absolute truth is? I think these are the three fundamental first principles or core tenets that we have to apply to our problem solving when we face with these challenges. Right. So it sounds simple, but when it comes to real life, it is not that simple. In fact, product management itself is like that. It sounds very simple from outside. If I were to explain product management to my 6-year-old, he would say, no, I could even do it. But in reality, product management is not that simple, right? So similarly, first principles is very complex to implement, primarily because not many people understand it, but there are also other reasons. Number one reason is we tend to optimize for form than for function. We focus more on continuous improvement, and we have our own mental models and biases. I will talk about each of these three things in detail, but these are the three major things that I think are stopping us from using first principles as our right hand or left hand. Right? So what is optimize for form? I'll give you a very simple example first, and then I'll go to explain what it is. And I think when I say the example, you will understand what it is. Let's take these two things. The left picture you see is a bag, a simple bag that carries things. And the right side you see is a wheel. And both of these have been existing since civilizations, your Roman civilization or Indus Valley or whichever is the oldest. But it took thousands and thousands of years to create a suitcase which would combine a bag with a wheel, and people have been carrying the bag even though the surfaces and other infrastructure was there. And you won't believe me, the rolling suitcase was first introduced in 1970. So till then, people were carrying bags and they didn't think about having a wheel to a bag. So this is what we do. People were building bags. They were building good bags. They were building better bags. They were building excellent bags. People were building wheels. They were building faster wheels. They were building super wheels, bigger wheels, smaller wheels and stuff. But it was all optimizing for form than for function. And that is where we should shed our inhibitions and look at innovation not as an iteration of an existing form, rather an improvement to the core function of what we are trying to solve. And that leads to the second point, where we talk about continuous improvement and radical innovation. I'll make my case. I'm not against continuous improvement because you might have already seen this. Improving by 0.1% every day will make a big change, is what people say. But let's look at a product, right? Let's take iPhone or any other Samsung phone even. Since the last 10 years, we have created bigger phones, bigger batteries, bigger cameras. But do you think there's a radical innovation that could have been possible, that would have been possible? And why are people overlooking there? And what I recently found is this particular thing, which we call a rabbit. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but this I think is a innovation. I don't know the usability of this, but I would recommend all of you to take a look at this and see how this can change or not change the mobile phone industry. This is called a Rabbit R1. It's a Rabbit phone, and it's powered by the ChatGPT and LLM models. Right, and this is a phone. Mind me, this is a phone. So just take a look at it when you get time, and think about first principles and radical innovation based on this. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, the problems with implementing first principles, is our mental models and biases. So again, I have two questions here. The first question: there is a chicken crossing a road. Why is a chicken crossing the road? Any guesses? Okay, food to get the other side. One more answer, and then I move to the next question. Walking. Okay, it wants to be fit. It's not crossing. KFC is on the other side. Okay, KFC is on this side. Okay. Just walking to see the clock. That is a good answer. She's wearing shoes, so she's walking, she's jogging. Okay. Great. Okay. Good answers. I'll move to the next question. Why do birds fly in a V formation? It's a little more scientific. The first one was a little less scientific. This is more scientific. Why V formation? Migration is fine, but why V? Why not a W or why not a S?
To save the
Aerodynamics,
energy.
air resistance, coordination, streamlined,
To save the energy.
save energy.
Kind of a scientific thing. I don't know what to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, that's right. All cyclists also do that, right? They form a team, and the first one takes all the air resistance, and the final lap, the one behind will go fast. Yeah. So I think I was a little worried, but I think I made the point. This is what I expected. So this is some question that not I formed, but from biologists like Robert Sapolsky and Richard Feynman, who wanted to prove a point on mental models. So when we have certain view around the world, when we know certain things, a concept or framework or worldview, we tend to be associated with it. For example, if you ask an evolutionary biologist on why a chicken is crossing the road, he would say that there's a potential mate on the other side and the hen is going to mate. If you look at a neuroscientist, they would say that, the chicken is, the neurons on the chicken's brain is firing and that is triggering the muscle motion and moving. Similarly, on the V formation, if you ask an automobile expert, they will say aerodynamics. If you ask a biologist, they will say coordination. If you ask a psychologist, they will say communication and coordination. So everybody has their own worldview, and that is what we call mental models. And in very simple definition, mental models is something on our concept of how world works. And mental models are influenced by a lot of things. It is influenced by our education, our specialization, our upbringing, our society, environment, the books we read, the people we talk, the food we eat, a lot of things. But that is a problem for product management, because we should not be biased because of our mental models, and we should be able to accept the worldview of things and take a holistic decision. A very famous saying, like, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's a trap that many product managers fell into when we have a restricted mental model, and we have to break those mental models and come out of it and have a little more holistic view of how things work around, and should be able to accept things that don't exactly fit in our scheme of things. So these are the problems. I'm not going to tell you how to solve these problems. That is for you to go and figure out and read. But ultimately, the three main things are radical innovation, which is continuous improvement, mental models and biases. And the first thing is, how do we, even I forgot the first thing. What's the first thing? Yeah, optimize for form than function. So these are the three things that we should really take care of when we look at first principles. Now let me come to the meat of what we're going to talk. For product management, and I think we've already covered that, but I'll give you some high pointers on what exactly should be the first principles for product management. Firstly, we have to break down the system to understand what the problem is. And system can be a situation, it can be a problem, it can be a product, it can be a platform, machine, whatever it is. We have to break that down into siloed individual blocks. Understand the right problem. Can be done at various levels and various ways, but you have to understand the problem and then create and align with the right goals. It can be an OKR at your team level. It can be a KPI at a sub-team level. It can be a vision or mission at an org level. You always have to align what you do with that larger goal in mind. And then you have to question the reliabilities of analogies. So that is what we said on mental models. So what do you think is right? Is it right really? Or is there something else that I should know and base my opinions on that? And then forms as function. And that is where you do MVPs. So MVP for a car would not be 4 wheels, would not be a frame, would not be 1 seat, would not be 2, 3, and 4. MVP would not be in that way for a car. For a car, the problem is transport. So you build a unicycle, you build a bicycle, you build an auto, and then you build a car. So that is, I think it's not a right thing for a car, but what I'm trying to say is the message that when you think about MVPs for a problem is different from thinking an MVP for a product. So always think about an MVP for a problem. And then prioritization, when to say no and when to say yes and when to say maybe. So this is something that a lot of people have problems with. Again, it's an ongoing problem, mainly because competing priorities, many important stakeholders, product goal is too large. So I think these are some everyday problems that we face, but I think that's also somehow related to first principles. Only when we know the bottom of our system, we would be able to rightly say yes or no to certain things. And always build modular and reusable things in your product. When I say things, it's very general, but modular and reusable features in your product, so that when you feel that you have missed the form versus function rail, you would be able to replace that particular feature in your product. If you build a very interconnected, very interdependent feature set in your product, it can sometimes bring down the entire product. So try always to modularize, and that has worked for me. I hope, I'm not sure if it works for all instances and all scenarios, but I think it would be the right way to think about modularization and reusability of every feature that you build. And that can also build a strong, use case for your product. And the final thing I say is, this is something that we always see, right? We rate testimonials of our product. So we say, listen to this satisfied customer. He is, giving great reviews of our product. But as a product manager, you should never listen to a satisfied customer. Always listen to a dissatisfied customer. And that is where you will find great inputs for your next 6 months roadmap. So this is product management. I think we are all very familiar with all of these things. So let me move on to what are the first principles for a product manager. So let's break that down, right? What is the role of a product manager? If you can give a 1-word or 2-word role of a product manager, what would that be? I'd like to hear it from all of you. What do you think is the role of a product manager? Problem solver. Very good. Enabler. Okay. Right judgment. Good listener. Okay, great. Punching bag. Okay. Jay, I think you've been punched a lot. I hope your office mates are not listening in the background. Great. Okay. So let's break this down, right? Let's break down product management with first principles. Let's see. Let's assume product managers are the product. And who are our primary customers? I would say they are our leadership, because that is who we report to, and that is who is asking us to build products, and they are the ones who hire us. There are secondary customers, secondary stakeholders who are our end customers, and all those people. But I think, again, my opinion is primary customers are our leadership. So now, what is expected of product manager from our primary customers? My opinion, I think all the answers are right here, but my answer is product manager is the one who brings clarity in unclear situations. If the situation is very clear, if people know what to build, how to build, and when to build, there is no need for a product manager. Right? So when does a product manager actually add value? Is that when people don't know what to do, and that is where leadership says, hey, Pratyusha or Deva, figure something out. Right? So how do we figure things out? Through visionary leadership, through customer centricity, and data-driven decision making. Right? Leadership is having a strategy, having a plan. Customer centricity is needs versus wants. I keep reiterating that need versus want is because a lot of people I have seen make mistakes in that. They always look at what a customer wants and they give it, but they don't look at what they need. And I want to quote Henry Ford, a very famous saying. He said that if I were to ask what customers want, they would have asked me for faster horses. So that's what people want. They want to go fast, and they know horses. They said, give me faster horses. But he built cars. So that is customer centricity. It's not about just asking customers and building what they want, but understanding what they need. And then finally, data-driven decisioning. I think we all know the importance of data and how it helps all of us. I think these are the 3 things that is expected out of a product manager. But let's look at what are the first principles that we should follow as product managers. There are 2 main things, or 2 core tenets that we should follow as product managers. One is to maximize impact, and 2 is to play coach. Very simple. What is impact? Impact is a measurable positive difference in how people operate with your product or solution. And it could be with developing a roadmap. It could be with execution. It could be with, talking to leadership and getting a buy-in. It could be product marketing, product-led growth. It could be anything, any type of product management you are in. It could be different, but ultimately we should maximize impact and we should play coach. So you all know this famous saying, influencing without authority, and this phrase is made for product managers, because product managers are not expected to build or operate the product. Instead, they should enable people who can build it. And again, different companies have different working model. Sometimes, product managers and engineering managers also, they do all the stuff. Sometimes they are in a glass ceiling that has no link with engineering managers. Product managers give requirements and they go off, and it's about engineering to do all of those things. But ultimately, what I think is we should play coach and not play on the field directly. So let's talk a little bit detail about maximizing impact. So maximizing impact can come in like 3-4 steps. Having a North Star for your product, like what exactly do you want your product to be? And how do you pitch and convince people around you? And people are leadership, stakeholders, customers, your engineering team, and all of those people. Like how do you create that vision and make people believe that vision? And a true leader does that, very nicely. And second, what is the environment signaling them? And this environment can be customers, they can be the market, they can be technology, like something like ChatGPT has come in recently and has taken us all by storm. Like, what is the environment signaling? What is the government doing? What is the regulations that are coming in? For example, cryptocurrency, right? Cryptocurrency was huge, and then India brought a lot of restrictions around cryptocurrency. What are the competitors doing? How is the culture of the landscape changing? So we have to also understand the environment signals before making any decisions on our product. And then product sense. Product sense is mainly tested in product interviews, but what exactly is product sense is how well you take a decision based on the limited set of resources available to you. Like, certain things, you don't know a lot of things, but you have to make a decision. So how do you take the decision is product sense, and product sense is an acquired skill. Like, you learn it. You learn it by reading, talking, understanding products, doing deep dives, and so on. But how do you make the best decisions from the details that you know, and how do you pivot when those decisions go wrong? And finally, constraints. Product manager should maximize impact while working with constraints. And 3 major constraints that everybody in this call might have faced is resource constraint. Whenever you say a product, they will say, we don't have the resources. Number 2, you want to launch it next month, they will ask for 8 sprints of time and money. When you ask for 3 more resources, they will say we are already running budget, market is not proper. So you keep hearing these constraints. With these constraints, how do you deliver the maximum impact that you want to deliver? That is what we have to work through. The next thing that I told was play coach. And I think this is a very important topic that I really wanted to discuss with all of you. Is that there is a very famous saying that goes in the product management says is, some people say a good product manager does whatever it takes to build a product. But should we do whatever it takes to do the product? Should we go and, I think doing whatever it takes makes you a good employee. But does it make you a good product manager is something that I really don't understand. So it is a very rational thinking that a product manager should volunteer, first to volunteer if there are any roadblocks or anything that the team is struggling with. But should they be the ones actually doing it, or did we do something wrong in planning or budgeting or initial strategy that has brought us to a space where product managers step in to do whatever it takes? So we have to be very careful with doing whatever it takes to build a product. And we have to have a style and define boundaries. So I think most of you watch football, even cricket. There are different types of coaches. Some coach go to the field and talk to players. Some coach don't even get up from their seat. Some coach are ex-players who are like very involved during the practice sessions and so on. So I think as product managers, we should have our own style depending on the team and the product that we are working on. So we can be a lead, we can be a partner, or we can be a support to their team. And it works in multiple ways. Like if you have a team of like fresh graduates, you need to be in with them, like lead them end to end from the top level to the most granular story level, epic level stuff. If you are working with somebody that is your age, your experience, then you have to partner with them. Like how do you work together and deliver more impact. If you are working with a team that is more expertise, like they are like experts in the field, and you are a fresh graduate, then you should be a support function saying that, hey, no, how can I help you? What is the thing that I can help you unblock you, deliver more? So we should have a style and define our boundaries and align with the team and saying, hey, this is how I'll operate. And I think this is the best way to do. And that is something that we need to understand when we play coach. And the main thing that we have to understand and accept is when a product succeeds, the team succeeds. When the product fails, many times the blame comes to the coaches, and coaches have to retire. And that happens with big companies also. The CEOs or the top level executives take the blunt, all of those right things, right? So how do you come in terms with that is something that we have to understand and take it as a basic principle and be careful with whatever we do as a product manager. And then, very unpopular opinion, I think product managers should also be responsible for nurturing the team culture. So whenever I see a team that is burnt out, that is not functioning to its 100%, I would really question the product manager on why is the team not delivering the impact. I would also blame the engineering manager, the leadership of engineering, but I also think it is an equal responsibility of product manager to make sure that the vision that he has is rightly passed on to the engineering team. They understand the impact and they work towards. Like, very simple thing. If you cannot convince your engineering folks, how would you consider convince an external customer? How will you convince your leadership? So I think as a coach for a product, you should also be responsible for the team culture, and that is one of our basic things that we should understand as product managers as our core tenets. So I think we have 10 more minutes. So I will go over mental models. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, because I have a couple of slides that I would like to also talk about in mental models.
Hey, hi, Chandrasekar. This is Pratyusha. I had one question. So I kind of work in a B2B environment, and do you think whatever you have suggested till now will change for a product manager working in a B2B model?
No, it shouldn't change. That is why it is the fundamental first principles. Regardless of what kind of product management you are, you would always have a problem to solve. You will always have constraints and restrictions, and you always have an engineering team. So I think all of these things should fit irrespective of B2C or B2B or B2B2C, whatever the framework is. But I think a little more introspection is needed on how it really applies for you, and you should take a really educated guess on how it really fits, because these are very basic general framework that I have shared. It might change very little bit depending on your business and the model.
Okay. I'm kind of thinking about the last point you said, where product manager is also responsible for the culture of the team. So the team I work with, the workload is kind of like when we actually estimate the stories and when we talk about the stories, the complexity really doesn't come out, even though the vision is properly communicated. So I think it also depends upon how complex product we really work on. Just wanted to make that
Yeah,
point.
completely.
Will that be
Yeah. I'm completely agreeing with that. So what I'm talking about is not about complexity. So the say-do ratios, complexity, there is always a problem with that. People don't estimate properly. They overestimate, underestimate. A lot of things can happen. But for example, say they estimated something, and we, as a product manager, promised a delivery to a customer or a leader on certain date. And during the course of the sprint, the team comes and says, we did a gross underestimation, and we would need 3 more days to complete. So is your team boosted, or is your team motivated enough to pull through like 2-3 all-nighters to get it delivered because they carry that vision along with you? Or are they going to put your neck in the line and say, I'm sorry, this is what it is, you go and manage? Like, that is the culture that we should look at. So it's not about execution, but the effort that people put in and the vision that they should share along with us is what I wanted to convey when I said team culture.
But how do you think we can bring that culture into the team? When is it through the example, like you working, because you can't really work like them, right? So how do you bring that, okay, team is enough motivated enough to pull this through the night and deliver it?
Yeah, I think it is very specific to the type of company, the type of geography, the type of culture you work in, Pratyusha. In my team, I have like 20 engineers in a product that I'm working in, and they are
Okay.
really fresh graduates. Like most of them are fresh graduates. So
Okay.
whenever I present or demo a product or feature, I take those engineers along with me, and I go and ask them to present it. So they get screen time with the leaders and primary customers, and I feel that kind of recognition from them directly to these people have made a lot of difference in how they work. And sometimes I also take them to customer interviews. And when I talk to customers, when I ask them what the problem is, I have these engineers along with me, so they hear things firsthand and they understand the pain of the customers, and they can act along with it. So it depends. There is no straight answer to this, but this is what I do. I take them.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Ashwin.
Hey Chandra, Ashwin here. I'm from on the hardware side. So I have a question like kind of connected to Pratyusha's question, but from a like she had B2B versus B2B as compared to B2C. In my case, I would like to ask you about how this most of this principle, how it will be applicable to hardware, because especially around that form versus function, the building MVP or something like modularization or reusability. I think there is in my view, there is a drastic difference between hardware and software there. So what extent this could be applicable to hardware, or is there anything to be corrected in my view?
Yeah, I think there is a significant amount of correction that we have to make to all of this when it comes to hardware. Because I worked in Ford and I was responsible for Ford Endeavor launch in 2021 or 2020, right? So that involves like 200 people working together to launch a car, and we cannot just put in radical ideas and ask people to even experiment it. So it depends on the hardware that you work on. If it's like a car or a bike or a truck, it is very difficult to bring such kind of radical innovations in the field, because there's a lot of investment that is going in. There's a lot of dependencies that it has, right from infrastructure to the ground labor, education, to the supply chain, all that we have planned, all the just in time and other things, the vendors and sources. So there's a lot of dependency. But if you reach a level where you can influence such decisions, I think you would have maybe you have to become a senior director or a VP of a certain department to even influence it. But what I see is, even in those places, people who have influential authority to make drastic changes, they are happy with incremental changes that fits the form. Like only certain people, say for example, Elon Musk, if you look at his Cybertruck, it is a totally different design. It's we call it futuristic. I don't know if it is the future, but it is totally different, right? Do you think any other company would have tried that way? A Ford, for example, Ford has been one of them. Even now, it is the largest truck manufacturer in the US, but they haven't tried something like that. They said, electric might not pull so much power. Like, that is where a product manager should come in. Then, if you look at, for example, I'll quote Ford because I work there. People have grown standards to reach that space of VP or SVP, and they make a lot of influential decisions. I think they have to change their mindset, adapt to the new changes, and bring some radical innovations if they really think it fits. What we see from our generation is that we are open to innovations, we are open to take a lot of risk. And that is one of the mental models that I will also cover. But many of the frameworks that I discussed are applicable, but some needs a lot of authority than a software product that product managers at our levels cannot decide on. So that is a very short answer for your question, Ashwin.
Yeah, but thanks.
Yes, Kalimuthu, please go ahead. We cannot hear you, Kalimuthu.
Kalimuthu, or you can type in the chat if you want. Maybe the next person if anyone else is having questions.
We cannot hear you, Kalimutu. I know you are speaking, but we
Yeah,
cannot hear you.
hi, am I audible?
Yes, much better. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my question is regarding your personal experience. In product management, what are the things that are difficult to handle in your initial days, such as coordinating with clients or developers? Like,
See, one thing that hasn't changed in my experience is stakeholder management, Kalimutu.
okay,
So that is the skill that I wanted to develop, I developed, and I am developing.
okay,
But it has a lot of nuances and a lot of psychology that I have ever imagined.
okay,
That is one of the mental models also that I wanted to discuss. See, the very recent lesson that I have learned is that um, it is not a cookie cutter solution. There is no one size fit all when it comes to stakeholder management. Everything can be put in a framework, but
yeah,
communication and stakeholder management cannot be a framework. And only if you are a good stakeholder manager, you can
okay,
actually grow up in levels in product management. So this
yeah,
is some lesson that I've learned, and I think that is what we should all work towards.
yeah. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think in the top of the hour, Siddharth, what do you think? Can we like extend 5 minutes? I'll just show what I prepared and then close the call.
Yeah, sure. I think hope everybody is okay.
Sure.
I don't see
Okay.
any objection, but yeah, I'll take over.
Yeah, Sid, yeah.
So mental models, I just wanted to give 3 top mental models that has helped me think and that I think you should also learn about. Again, mental model is very simple. It is an explanation how something works from your perspective, right? How things work. What is the concept, that you think world works, and we should always keep expanding our mental models. We should learn about new mental models and expand our horizon so that we understand things from a different perspective. And 3 things that I really follow are game theory, prospect theory, and status quo bias. These are the things that I really learn about and I try to also implement in my day-to-day work. Game theory is how the decisions that you make affect each other. Like people make a lot of decisions, they collide, they collaborate, they negate, they do a lot of things. But when you make a decision in product, you have to understand how this affects each other and work towards having a win-win for all. So that is game theory. Prospect theory is about risk and uncertainty. So when there is significant risk and uncertainty, how to make decisions under those and how it affects us. Like, do we have any bias on that? Is something that prospect that I spoke with Ashwin is that people do not want to move out of status quo. They just want to be comfortable with what they are and make only minimal changes. But sometimes that can go against market and we fall behind the market trend. So we should always look at all our innovations. If it is, are we biased? Are we, resisting change? Or is there something that we can actually try? So maybe quickly I'll go through the rest of the deck. Game theory, a very simple example is prisoner's dilemma. Many people may know it. So simple example, there are 2 people. Police has arrested these 2 people, the orange and the red. So if both of them confess for the crime, so okay, police has no proof. Police has nothing to put them in jail. They are just interrogating. They take them to different rooms, siloed, and they're interrogating. If both of them confess for the crime, they will get 5 years each. If this orange guy, gives away blue guy, orange guy will be let go, but the blue guy will get 20 years. And the opposite also is true. When the blue guy, gives away the orange guy, blue guy is let go free, but orange guy gets 20 years. If both of them remain silent, they get 1 year each. So this is prisoner's dilemma. What would the prisoners do? So if you look at logically, if you coordinate with each other, you will get 1 year together or 5 years together. If you do not coordinate, one person will get 20 years, but the other person will go free. So what we from an individual perspective think is, if we are the orange guy, we will definitely give away the blue guy and let him go for 20 years. We will go out for 0 years. But in a business environment, that wouldn't work for you. You should always work together is something that this is. For example, let's take a business where there are only 2 players, player A and player B. They both sell the product for 10 rupees. Now, they both sell the product for 10 rupees for like last 10 years. Now, the company A decides to reduce the price by 1 rupee just to win more market. Now, 10 years they have been equal. They have their own market share, but one guy wants to reduce the price and starts a price war, and it would collapse the entire business because this guy reduced to 9 rupees, the other guy would reduce to 8.5, this guy again goes to 8. So that would set a price war. If they had stayed at the same level, they could have both got more profit, and they could have both not more profit, maybe they could have both got enough profit to sustain. So when you take a decision, you have to also think about how the decision will affect others and take a decision that's a mutual win-win for all of us. Because when you become too greedy, you might lose a lot of things. I think I suggest you all read about Prisoner's dilemma and game theory. It's a very interesting theory. There's a lot of things like Nash equilibrium and all of those things in this. So I think everybody should really check this out. Second thing is prospect theory. And prospect theory is very interesting. And I think the person got a Nobel Prize for this, Daniel Kahneman. So first thing of prospect theory is loss aversion. So what it says is we take a lot of risk when it is a loss, but we want certainty in a gain. Example, there is a game where you say that there is a 50% probability of gaining 1,000 and 50% probability of gaining $0 as option A. Option B, there's a 100% probability of gaining $500. If you look at a probability perspective, 50% of 1,000 is 500 and 50% of 0 is 0. Option B is also the same, which is 100% of 500, which is $500. But as a normal human, as a rational human, we will always choose B because that promises us 100% of $500. On the flip side, on the losses, we would always gamble for a loss. We would say we will take 100% probability of losing 500 than a 50% of probability of losing $1,000. So this is loss aversion, and this is useful in a lot of things in business, like the limited time offers that people say, the loyalty programs where they award credits and people want to use it before it expires, people adding more to the cart to get free delivery. So all of this is loss aversion because very simple example, like I said, is the delivery fee that all of us have faced. We add more things to cart just to reduce 5 rupees in our delivery cost, but we would have added like 200 rupees in our cart. So that is prospect theory for all of you, and we have done it. We are the victims of all of that. Second thing is reference. So there's always a reference point, and that makes loss more painful. Imagine you have 10 rupees and people say you are going to lose 5 rupees. Imagine you have 100 rupees and people say you're going to lose 5 rupees. The pain of losing 5 rupees when you have 10 rupees is more than the pain of losing 5 rupees when you have 100 rupees. But ultimately, you're losing only 5 rupees. But you have this reference in mind that 100 rupees and 5 rupees is 5%, 10 rupees and 5 rupees is 50%. So when you take decisions on letting go of things, we should always not take reference. We should take the absolute value. That is what this thing says. And finally, framing. So perceived value is what framing is, and how you frame your messages in your product. I'll give you an example. Let's take yogurt, and imagine there are two advertisements that you do. One says this contains 20% fat, and the other says this is 80% fat free. So which one do you think people would buy? Obviously the 80% free one, but they both are one and the same, right? So I think these are some theories that we should understand and avoid in our journey towards building products, right? And the last one is status quo bias, which is that things are working fine, the new thing is dangerous, so I'm not going to try it. But there is a risk of loss, there is a risk of business, there is a risk of reputation, a lot of these things. But is it because of the problem with technology or skill or resource, or is it the problem of our status quo bias, which we think that we are comfortable? Why should we take a change? Why should we take a risk? So whenever there is such a change that is coming in, we have to question ourselves, why are we thinking like this? What is the mental model that is bringing us this particular thought? And if it is a right mental model to apply. And this is what I wanted to cover. I think, yeah, that's all. So that's all I had on mental models and first principles. I think they are interlinked one to each other. Whenever you frame your first principles, you should make sure that your mental models are right and you don't actually, fall prey to any of these biases that we have. And build your framework so that your product is strong and your product management carrier is strong. So yeah, that is all I had.